The expression on Aunt Celia's face made every sleepless night, every sideways glance, and every moment of doubt over the past 6 years absolutely worth it. But to understand why, we need to start at the beginning. I'm Emily Kim, and I've never taken the traditional path. While my cousins jetted off to Ivy League campuses, I stayed in Seattle, working full-time at Everlin Labs, our family's biotech manufacturing firm. By night, I earned a degree in automation engineering through an online program. Not because I couldn't get into the top schools, I could, but because I saw where the industry was headed. Biotech didn't need more prestige, it needed transformation. I believed automation, machine learning, and adaptive systems were the key, and I knew that to lead that change, I had to learn the science and understand the floor-level grind of production. Still chasing that fantasy degree? Aunt Celia would smirk as she passed my office, cluttered with code, sensors, and half-finished prototypes. After my mom, her younger sister, passed in 2019, Celia inherited Everlin. The 12% stake left to me was treated like a courtesy, not a claim. Reputation matters in biotech, she'd preach to the board, not garage projects and online certificates. She could afford to ignore me, but I didn't ignore her, or the industry. I watched as other firms battled bottlenecks, contamination, and inefficiency. I studied the problems, and I knew the right tech could solve them. Evan, Celia's son and Wharton grad turned fast-tracked COO, once laughed at me in the cafeteria. "She's never giving you control," he said. "You graduated from Zoom." I said nothing, I just kept building. When I finally patented a system that tripled output and slashed operating costs, the board had no choice but to take notice. Suddenly, I wasn't the girl with the online degree, I was the one who saved their future. They called Everlin her company, forgetting it was my mother who turned a small regional lab into a national player. They forgot those shares were earned with vision and risk, not inherited titles. But I remembered. For 3 years, while they dismissed me as a quirky tech girl, I worked in silence. By day, I was just Emily Kim from quality control. By night, in my cramped apartment-turned-lab, I was building something that would change everything. I named it ANIC, Adaptive Neurointelligence Control. Not another automation add-on, this was an AI brain for biotech production. ANIC could predict errors, adjust formulations in real time, and optimize efficiency far beyond today's norms, all while surpassing FDA compliance. I filed the patent in my name alone. Celia never asked me to sign an IP clause for off-hours work. She didn't think side projects mattered. That arrogance was about to cost her everything. The same week my patent was approved, disaster hit. A competitor unveiled a semi-automated line, slashing their costs by 30%. Our stock plummeted. Celia scrambled, calling an emergency shareholder meeting. I sat quietly in the back as she stumbled through hollow reassurances. Evan, her rising star, shifted uneasily beside her. They had no idea 3 production batches had failed FDA quality checks that same week. I did. I'd flagged them myself. "Perhaps," I said, steady and clear, "we should consider real solutions." Celia's head whipped toward me. "This isn't the time for your experiments." "Actually," I said, standing and opening my briefcase, "it's the perfect time, especially since the board deserves to know what's really happening." Gasps rippled through the room. "Sit down," Evan said coldly. "This isn't your platform." "Maybe not before," I said, connecting my laptop to the projector. "But now, let me show you what your company's been running behind the scenes." I pulled up the dashboard. My name glinted on the patent title. "This is ANIC's Alive Operational Platform. For the past 3 months, it's been running parallel to our main line." Celia went pale. "You did what?" "As quality control supervisor," I said, smiling, "I have full authority to test systems under a secured protocol. You signed off on that clause yourself." The screen came alive, real-time diagnostics, efficiency metrics, adaptive feedback. "Let's look at the results," I said. Slide by slide, the numbers hit like punches: 45% reduction in cost, 98% fewer quality failures, 0 compliance violations, FDA inspection results to match. "This isn't a patch," I said. "It's a platform, it's scalable, and it's ready." Evan rose to object. These numbers, this can't be real. They're not projections, I said, turning to him. They're verified. Celia gripped the table, white-knuckled. This is unauthorized. No, I said, flipping to the contract clause. It's documented, compliant, and protected. The patent is mine, not the company's, not yours. The room buzzed like it was about to detonate. At first, confusion, then realization. Investors leaned forward. Whispers turned into quiet murmurs of excitement. We could license this, someone said. It's its own division waiting to happen, murmured another. I saw it in their eyes, dollar signs. Yes, but more than that. Recognition, respect. Celia sat frozen. Michael looked like a boy who'd wandered into the wrong room. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud. It's not a confrontation. It's standing tall while everyone who once dismissed you realizes they were never even in your league. I closed my laptop slowly. My mother built Everlin on vision, I said. I plan to protect it with innovation. Judging by the looks around the table, they were ready to follow, not the backup plan, not the overlooked niece, but Emily Kim, the future of Everlin Labs. One shareholder spoke up. Do you really think other companies would pay for this? I met his eyes. They already have. This morning, I received offers from 3 major biotech firms. You could have heard a pin drop. They're particularly interested in the fact that Everlin doesn't own the patent. Celia shot to her feet, her chair clattering behind her. This is outrageous. You were under our roof. That IP belongs to Everlin. I met her glare without flinching. I built Anise every algorithm, every prototype after hours, in my own apartment, with my own money. And because you insisted for years that my work was worthless, you never asked me to sign an intellectual property agreement. My attorneys have documented every detail. I held up the thick packet bearing the patent seal. This belongs to me, legally and irrevocably. Then I clicked to the final slide, a side-by-side projection of Everlin's trajectory, with and without Anise. The contrast was brutal. Without it, we lose FDA certification in 6 months. Competitors are evolving. We're stuck 5 years behind. I paused, then gestured to the soaring green line. With Anise, we don't just survive, we lead. Just then, the boardroom doors opened. 3 guests stepped inside, and Celia's face drained of color. Allow me to introduce David Chin from Merck, Sarah Williams from Moderna, and Thomas Rodriguez from Genentech, I said. Each of them has expressed interest in acquiring exclusive rights to Anise. I invited them today to observe the live demonstration. Michael sprang to his feet. This is a closed meeting. You can't. I can, I replied, lifting a slim leather folder. As a shareholder, I'm entitled to invite outside observers to any non-confidential demonstration. It's in the bylaws, the ones my father helped write. The industry reps took their seats, their attention fixed on the screen. I turned back to the board. So here's the choice. Everlin can license my technology. You'll retain access, but at market rate, under strict terms. Or, I looked again to the guests. I accept one of the standing offers. Celia slammed her fist on the table. This is blackmail. No, I said evenly. This is leverage, the kind you told me I'd never have with my worthless online degree. I reached into my bag and pulled out a second document. This is my formal licensing proposal. It includes several conditions. What kind of conditions? One board member asked, already leaning in. First, I said, a restructuring of the board. My mother built this company to push boundaries, not to preserve egos. We need leadership that reflects progress. Celia scoffed. You want my seat? No, I said. I want the one I've earned, Chief Technology Officer, with a permanent board seat. The agreement is contingent on that appointment. The silence was heavy. Then, from across the table, Michael asked quietly, and if we say no? I turned once more to the visiting executives. Then I walk. My patent, my platform, and my future, elsewhere. A pause, then Mr. Alder, the oldest board member and one of the few who still remembered what this company stood for, cleared his throat. We need to vote, he said, now. Celia looked around. She saw what I saw. The tide had turned. Her grip on Everlin, once so absolute, was gone. "This isn't over," she hissed. "It is," I said, "but not for me." I gave a subtle nod to my attorney, who stepped forward with a stack of sealed envelopes, passing one to each board member. "What is this?" Celia snapped. "An internal audit," I said. "I commissioned it 3 months ago. It found several discrepancies in recent FDA compliance reports, discrepancies that align precisely with Michael's promotion to VP of Operations." Michael's face drained of color. Celia tore open her envelope. "Silence. The full report has already been filed with the appropriate regulatory agencies," I added. "So, you have 2 options: accept my proposal and move forward, or explain to the feds why your records don't match your batch data." Panic, whispers, anxious glances. The room erupted into low arguments and side conversations. Some board members huddled, others sat in stunned silence. I remained where I was, as calm, centered, unshaken. My father once told me, "You don't fight power by shouting at it, you replace it." And that's exactly what I was doing. As the board called for an immediate vote, I felt the shift. This wasn't just a win. It was a reckoning. The reflection in the glass caught me by surprise. This time, it wasn't just my father's determination I saw in my posture, it was his pride. 6 months. That's all it took to change everything. I stood in what had once been Aunt Celia's office, now mine. From here, I watched the humming, rhythmic dance of our production floor, now upgraded with Anise, the system I built. Below me, intelligent algorithms worked tirelessly, coordinating automation, recalibrating data, ensuring precision. The lifeblood of Everlin Labs had become a seamless blend of human ingenuity and cutting-edge technology. Since we'd implemented Anise, production efficiency had surged by 250%, and our stock price had tripled. We weren't just surviving, we were defining the future. The door opened, and Maria Rodriguez, our new VP of Operations, walked in, a wide grin spreading across her face as she held up a thick folder. "The FDA inspectors just left," she said, her excitement barely contained. "They're calling us the gold standard in biotech manufacturing. They even want to base future regulations on our systems." I smiled, remembering the words of doubt Aunt Celia had once tossed my way, how my garage project would ruin Everlin's reputation. She'd been wrong. About me. About everything. The fallout from that shareholders' meeting had been swift. The board voted unanimously to accept my proposal, not just for the patent, but because of the ugly truths uncovered in the audit. Michael had been falsifying compliance records for months. When the investigation wrapped, the consequences for him were severe. Celia had no choice but to step down. Her silence, her inaction, had made her complicit. "Have you seen today's Wall Street Journal?" Maria asked, passing me a copy. The headline blared, "Everlin Labs redefines biotech manufacturing. Stock soars amid AI breakthrough." Underneath, in smaller print, "Former CEO Celia Whitman under SEC scrutiny in separate venture." I scanned the article briefly, then set it down. Celia wasn't my problem anymore. I had more important things to focus on: the Emily Kim Innovation Fellowship, a scholarship program I'd launched in my mother's name. It aimed to provide financial support to students from non-traditional backgrounds, especially those pursuing biotech automation. My phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Sarah Chin at MIT. Her team wanted to collaborate on expanding Anise to CRISPR and cell therapy manufacturing. 5 years ago, I couldn't even get MIT to reply to my emails. Now, they were seeking my expertise. A soft knock at the door broke my train of thought. To my surprise, Aunt Helen stood there, looking hesitant as she stepped inside. She'd always been the quiet observer, the one who never played politics, never sought power. "Emily," she began, her voice unsteady, "do you have a moment?" I gestured for her to sit. She lingered awkwardly at first, clearly out of place in the office that had once been her sister's kingdom. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice quieter now, "for what you did for Liam." Liam, Sully's younger son, had always been different. He was quiet, technical, hands-on. He'd been taking online courses in robotics engineering for years, but had kept it hidden from Celia. After the leadership shift, I found his job application buried in the files, rejected outright under Celia's orders. I brought him in, giving him the chance he deserved. Now, Liam was flourishing in the tech division. Liam earned his place, I said, my tone firm but kind, just like everyone else here. Helen's eyes misted over. Celia was wrong. About education. About you. About how this company should be run. She paused, her gaze softening. Your mother would be proud. I turned my attention to the space around me. The heavy oak furniture, the polished brass nameplates, everything had been replaced with sleek, functional design. Bright, open spaces filled with technical schematics, real-time dashboards, and photos of our diverse, engaged engineering teams. The values my mother instilled in me, integrity, vision, self-determination, were alive in every inch of this company. A soft chime sounded from my desktop. Anise had just corrected a pressure variance in one of our clean rooms. A quiet miracle, one of many. Celia? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Industry newsletters were tracking her every failed startup. Every venture she launched was doomed, haunted by her refusal to adapt. She's adjusting, Helen replied cautiously. The SEC investigation is taking its toll. But maybe it's exactly what she needed. She's starting to see that the world's changed. And it had. Everlin Labs was no longer just a family business. It had become a biotech powerhouse, valued at over $2 billion. Major firms were licensing our technology. Students from around the world were applying to join us, eager to be part of something transformative. My assistant buzzed in. The quarterly board meeting was about to start. Helen stood to leave. I heard about your scholarship fund, she said at the door. Celia saw it too. She never said anything, but I think she finally understands what she missed. After Helen left, I made my way down to the production floor. No one looked up. That was exactly how it should be. They were too focused, too passionate, too proud of their work in shaping this new era of biotech. Liam was at his station, calibrating one of Anise's sensory modules. His framed online degree in robotics engineering hung proudly on the wall beside him, just like mine upstairs. How's the calibration? I asked. He looked up and grinned, eyes bright, almost too perfect, just the way we built it. As he spoke, Anise suggested a minor sensor realignment, improving accuracy by another 3%. I watched in awe. What started as a series of messy sketches on my apartment wall had become a defining technology in the industry. Anise was now benchmarked by the FDA and being studied by MIT. The future of biotech manufacturing had been built by a woman with an online degree who refused to believe her education was worthless. Back in my office, I opened the drawer and pulled out the nameplate once displayed on Aunt Celia's desk. Celia Whitman, CEO, gleaming brass, thick and heavy. I tossed it into the recycling bin without a second thought. The nameplate on my desk was much simpler, sleek, clean. Emily Kim, Chief Technology Officer. And beneath it, a small inscription, the first line of code I'd ever written for Anise, back when it was still just a dream. The quarterly board meeting was about to begin. Another record-breaking quarter, more innovations to unveil. But first, I drafted a message to the head of our scholarship program. Double the number of online degree scholarships next year, and add this to the application. No degree is worthless if you have the vision to use it. Because the real victory wasn't revenge, it was transformation. Success isn't determined by the school you attended, it's by the courage to build something meaningful from the knowledge you have. And Celia had been right about one thing: tradition does matter in biotech. But she forgot, every tradition starts with someone daring to break the mold. As I passed our newly updated mission statement on my way to the boardroom, I paused. Everlin Labs, where innovation meets integrity. And beneath it, in smaller print, my mother's words, those I had carried with me all these years. Education is never worthless. Vision is priceless. She'd been right all along.